Welcome to Inspiring Business with your host, Mark Bullock, who is the co-founder of videosocials.net and of videointerviewpodcast.com. In every episode, Mark interviews business and organizational thought leaders who share their stories of how they inspire others by making a difference. You can find this show on videosocials.net and YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and almost any podcast platform of your choosing.
Welcome to Inspiring Business. And today I'm excited to have my friend and client, Gabrielle Strich. Gabrielle is the principal at Strich Law Firm P.C, where she focuses on family law, elder law, estate planning, employment law, and high conflict mediation. Great to have you, Gabrielle. How are you today?
Well, thank you for having me. I'm great. Thank you for asking.
You're welcome. So we didn't talk about this beforehand, and I want to know what makes you different from other attorneys. But before we get into that, you've been practicing law for some time, and you've kind of migrated into a couple of areas as far as an elder law and estate planning, as well as conflict resolution. And we want to discuss those things later. But what drew you to that? What I often ask my guests, kind of what's your story? How did you end up doing what you're doing right now?
Well, when I was a young attorney and I would get a divorce case, we would file a fault complaint. We would paint a really black picture of the other person. And of course, my client had angel wings and a halo in the way I would describe it. And if somebody told me that was really a nasty complaint, I would be so proud of that I'd done such a great job. And I really, having done the litigation for so many years, I should tell you, I've been an attorney for over 40 years, and I was in human resources for a couple of years before that. It just doesn't make sense to me. I think it's an extremely rare situation where a simple, irreconcilable difference complaint is sufficient, because the bottom line 95% of the time is exactly the same. The same pension gets divided, the house gets bought out or sold, et cetera, and all that other stuff creates a lot of bad feelings and puts up blockages to really resolving the true issues in the matter. It certainly doesn't help in co-parenting with the children. So my experience has led me to believe that while you always have to have litigation as an absolute last resort, that's what it should be. It should be an absolute last resort.
Fantastic. And we have many clients in the mediation space, alternative dispute resolution space. I drank the Kool-Aid myself many years ago. So we're delighted to have you to work with you, and especially since that's your focus. And obviously that's a differentiator between you and other attorneys. But what else separates you or sets you apart from other attorneys?
Well, I pride myself on being very creative in my dispute resolution, thinking of suggestions that maybe other people who are more tied to a traditional way of doing things might not think of, and maybe that's what will work for the client. It's not my solution. It has to be the client's solution, of course. But I try to suggest things that gets them to a place where they can really fine-tune a solution for them and their family.
So it sounds like you.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah, well, it sounds like you're giving them a different perspective, right? It's because we all come into situations or conflict. We have our perspective and our position, and then we're standing on that position. So not only is it allowing you interacting with them, allowing them to see from a different perspective, but you can then provide some creative ideas and solutions because they're working together towards resolving the conflict rather than, just getting to a quote written agreement, which has nothing to do but with how they feel about it, after the fact and throughout the rest of their lives. I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it's kind of what I see as far as conflict resolution versus litigation. So,
Well, a couple other things make me different from other
mm,
attorneys. First of all, I've had specific training in high conflict mediation. And
mm,
high conflict it is not a couple that argues a lot, though often people that are high conflict do argue a lot. But one or both of the parties actually have a personality disorder. And
mm,
I've had a judge say to me, "You're only a lawyer. How would you know if someone has a personality disorder?" And to me, the answer is like obscenity. You know it when you see it. As an example, if somebody literally calls you 40 times about the upcoming Halloween holiday, I'm comfortable in telling you that's outside of normal.
right,
So, and I've had cases like that.
right,
So, you have to come up with different kinds of solutions and work with people in a different way if they're in the high conflict category. Sometimes when you first start with a high conflict couple, it's like, oh, they both have problems, or what's the story? And as time goes on, you learn that really it's one person that has an unusual view of the world, let's just say, and the other person has been so beaten up for so many years that at first they come off as a little outside of normal, but what they're really exhibiting is being emotionally battered.
right.
And so it's very important to be sensitive to that. I certainly am not a psychologist or therapist. I don't make any diagnoses, but I do try to be sensitive if it appears that one person is clearly outside of normal range in their perspective and or behavior. And if that's the case, then we need to come up with different kinds of solutions. For example, co-parenting is a myth in a high conflict situation. You
Mm,
have to have lateral parenting where
okay.
there's still some limited coordination. But the
Right.
big focus is everybody understands what happens at dad's house happens at dad's house. What happens at mom's house happens at mom's house. Now, of course, you can't let dad or mom take the kids to the edge of a cliff and throw them over. Of course not. But um, absent clear danger like that,
Mm-hmm.
if they go to bed later at dad's house, that's what happens there. You know, you have to disengage in the ongoing conflict so that you can have a life, the other person can have a life, and more importantly, the kids are free to develop in a good way. And
Excellent.
another way that my practice is unusual is the combination that I do. There are
Mm,
very, very few attorneys in the state that do both elder law and family law, and they absolutely intersect in more ways than people realize. I've given lectures to family lawyers what you need to know about elder law so you don't inadvertently commit malpractice. And likewise, in elder law, sometimes the right answer is to divorce the couple, and it's so useful if you can do that, taking into account all the elder law issues. There has to be some special language in the agreement in those cases. So uh, I can help in both settings. For example, if you have a couple where one of them is on Social Security disability, they're disabled, um, and typically, of course, not making a lot of money in that situation, and so support is most commonly required. Well, you have to know that you can't pay alimony outright to somebody on SSI disability, or you'll disqualify them. It has to go into a special needs trust, and you can build a special needs trust right into the marital settlement agreement. So these are just little mini examples of how that unusual combination of expertise and experience can assist clients.
and which really brings up something for me, which is that every couple's different, every situation is different, everybody has their finances and their family dynamics, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the things that um, you're drawing attention to is that estate planning and elder law and a divorce all can actually be hand in hand and can be dependent on each other. And if you don't have the training and experience and the understanding of where those intersects are, and you're just looking at one thing or one area, you can really trip yourself up. Even if you've gotten an attorney or quote an expert in that one area, by not looking more holistically at your entire family dynamic and what the finances are, and as you said, the parenting, it all kind of plays together, and it sounds like that's really where you kind of reside, is in those complex situations where you do have multiple areas of law and multiple areas of conflict resolution that all need to kind of work together.
And sometimes other attorneys become aware of this, and sometimes they'll just refer me a case, but sometimes they realize it's got to be part of the marital resolution. And so I will come in as a neutral mediator, just a neutral resource in those cases to assist handling that area while they retain representation with the person they started with. So I don't have to necessarily be the attorney on the case to be available and helpful to other people.
Well, I know you had told me that before, because not only are you trained and experienced in alternative dispute resolution and mediation and collaborative law, but you're also a trainer. You're also teaching other attorneys how to do this, and it's frankly, it's delightful to hear that you can be inserted and be a part of that situation as a neutral third party without actually representing either side, but essentially acting as the person who's going to give that perspective, to that knowledge and expertise that's required to help their existing divorce attorney or et cetera, with knowing what needs to be handled and helping to resolve conflict. So I think that's also very very unique. And then you have something else that's really unique, and that is ombudsman. And how does that work?
Well, I started out actually in human resources before going to law school, and I've always had employment law as part of my practice, both representing employers and employees, but never in the same company. Obviously, that would be a conflict. So it's part of my background and knowledge for, I hate to tell you this, over 40 years. I like to tell people I started practicing at 6, so that's how I have this much experience, and I'm still young, but nobody believes me. But the key thing of ombudsperson is it's a win-win kind of situation. Finally called as an ombud. So an ombud is hired by the CEO or president of a company, and it's to be a resource for employees that, I mean, anybody that has worked with human resources, they know where their paycheck is coming from. They get the name on their paycheck, and their job is to handle certain administrative issues, but they're not there to be your empathetic helper. They're there to carry out the company's role, and they're loyal to the company and its management. And anybody that goes in thinking something else is putting themselves in a jeopardous position.
Oh, okay.
So an ombud person is truly a neutral person. They report to that president or CEO only. And their goal is to really provide listening to an employee who feels uncomfortable about something or upset about something, and to investigate it and to keep the CEO informed that they are meeting with someone and it's this kind of issue. But everything that happens with the ombud person is in fact confidential. And why would a CEO or president be interested in that? Because A, it's a big plus for employees to learn they have this kind of resource. And B, it gives the company a chance through the ombud to cut off a potential discrimination claim or class action by the employees, and to find a way to resolve problems in a way the company can live with and the employee feels heard and addressed. Let me put it that way. So having done employment law for so many years and focusing on alternate dispute resolution, it feels like a very natural fit.
Absolutely. And again, it's that neutral third party, situation where you're coming in and knowing the law, knowing the rules, knowing the regulations, but making sure that both parties are being heard. And I think one of the things that I've really struck me in what you just talked about is that the HR department, the people in the HR department are there representing the company. They're not necessarily representing the employee. So unless there's a union or something like that involved, it's good for the employee to be on notice that, they need not representation, but they need somebody to be kind of in their corner as well. And so very interesting, very, very interesting indeed. Well, you talk about these things on video quite often, and you have a YouTube channel, which is Strich Law Firm P.C. on the YouTube channel. You're also on LinkedIn under Gabrielle Strich, and of course your website is strichlaw.com. And there'll be links, folks, for all of these things associated with this podcast or with this video interview on YouTube, either way around. But how did you get into video? And because you're a member, full disclosure, you're a member of Video Socials, which is a video blogging club. And we come together 5 to 8 people or so in a meeting, and we take turns recording videos and giving each other feedback and giving each other tips and ideas and learning from each other, et cetera. But what has your experience been with Video Socials, and was it the thing that helped you really start to create video content that helped to educate and inform, your audience?
Absolutely, Mark. Believe me, before I started with Video Socials, I did not have video content. That's simple.
Right.
It forces you to carve out time in your schedule to plan what you want to talk about on the video, and you get it done. And there are tools to make it a professional result. There's a lot of coaching that is key to making a professional result. I can't imagine trying to solely do it just talking into a video and not knowing, is this good or should I try that? Or because the feedback from your colleagues is so important. And when you've been doing it for a while, you learn, you get better. I mean, before I produced a video that I wasn't going to be embarrassed about, it was like 6 tries. And I speak all the time to groups of people. It's a different process doing the video. And I have seen an uptick in people that look at my website and click on me. And I think it's related to the fact that I do these videos. I think I have over 50 of them now, and I'm not running out of topics, needless to say. So, there's so much. Anytime I think I'm getting there, somebody comes in with an unusual situation and off I go again. So I love it because I think it gives people a lot of valuable information in the fields that you work in. And so you're a resource and you're giving back to the community. And it really gives people a feel for who you are, what you look like, how you sound, how you work. And it's all done in a professional way. Are my videos like the smooth things you'd like to see on CBS? No, they're not. Because I am really a lawyer and alternate dispute person foremost. That's what I pride myself on. I am not a professional videographer or speaker, but I'd like to think I produce realistic, reasonably professional, but humanistic videos so that people can get a sense of who I am, what I know, and also get what I hope is very valuable information in each of the videos.
Well, and thank you. And you're an incredibly valuable member, and we've learned what we know from all of our members, right? So when we started it, we had no idea what we were doing, and we let our members tell us what it needed to be, and you're certainly a big part of that. But I really wanted to acknowledge you because it's not. As you said, I too had quite a bit of experience in public speaking, but the first time on video was like terrifying. And I use video socials to be able to create, my quite large library of content now as well. But I like you, and what I wanted to acknowledge you for is that your willingness to share, not only through a written blog post somewhere or, some page on a website, whatever, but actually have a conversation with your audience in which you're conveying, as we've done today, information that's useful and valuable, and that they can take and use and makes a difference for them in whatever their whatever endeavors, whatever problem they're trying to solve, or whatever challenges that they're facing. And you've developed a library of that in video form, which of course is what most people really want to consume valuable content and interesting content. So again, there'll be links that are tied in with all of these things that we're talking about, both for LinkedIn, for Gabrielle's website, as well as your YouTube channel. And I thank you for your involvement in video socials and your contribution to it. But in wrapping up today, what is something that you would want either attorneys to know that might want to use you, or a employer or employee that is dealing with a conflict resolution, or a person who's considering getting divorced and et cetera? Why would they want to have a conversation with you?
Well, I'd like to think I have developed some knowledge in my 40 plus years as an attorney. And so the person should feel pretty comfortable that I have a good base of knowledge, and that I like to look at it from multiple perspectives to see, is there a solution somebody else hasn't thought of? Or even if somebody else has thought of, am I the right person to help implement that for you? One of my strengths and my weaknesses is I'm very passionate, and I'm passionate about my client and their position. So if I'm neutral, however, then I try to really make everybody feel that I am there for them and that they're getting a fair shake.
Well, and as a neutral, when you are in that kind of role, you're not legally representing both, but you're there for both, as well as, of course, the rest of the family, the kids, and everything else. And so I really acknowledge you as somebody who's started out in the litigation practice, and I do believe that you don't litigate at all anymore. Is that correct?
I wish I could say I'm not litigating at all anymore, because I feel a duty to finish up with the clients I'm currently working with. Right. But I am not taking new litigation cases. Right. Unless I promised you 3 years ago when we started working together, I would be there for you. But I may, in fact, hire a co-counsel or something to really make sure that you are fully covered from the litigation perspective, because my heart's not there. It's in alternate dispute resolution now.
Yeah, well, and the core of that is resolving the dispute, not carrying it forward and milking the dispute and stoking the fire, as it were, which I think the litigation process just has kind of built in, which it is. So I really appreciate it and acknowledge you, and that's one of the reasons that I frankly wanted to interview you on this show, because inspiring business is about those that are making a difference for others. And through your years, decades of experience, you're not only bringing the technical knowledge, the legal knowledge, et cetera, but you're bringing a true understanding of what the other side looks like, right? What that litigation path looks like, both in cost, in frankly, emotional damage that it does, relationship damage, because I think that a lot of people, I've never been divorced myself, and pray that I'll never need to be. But we all have a tendency not to recognize at first, at least, the impact that it has on our kids and the impact that it has on us moving forward in life and having a fulfilling life that we're also parenting with our soon-to-be ex. And so I really acknowledge you for taking on alternative dispute resolution, as well as very, very interested in this ombudsman thing, because I've never even met anybody that does that, and I think that's a very cool function that you do.
Thank you. And I really appreciated the opportunity to speak today. And it's always a pleasure to chat with you. We do feel like we know each other because it's been well over a year that we've been working together almost weekly. So
Yeah.
I recommend that other people consider video socials. It's a wonderful and I think very effective approach to marketing that also gives back to the community. So.
Outstanding. Well, listen, thank you so much, Gabrielle. And I would request of our audience, please do subscribe in whatever form or means that you are watching or listening to this interview. I am interviewing people like Gabrielle on a weekly basis. And so there's a lot of inspiration available if you'll subscribe. Again, I'm Mark Bullock, the co-founder of videosocials.net, and you've been listening to the Inspiring Business Podcast. Have a great day, everyone.
You've been listening to Inspiring Business with your host, Mark Bullock. Your positive comments, likes, and most importantly, your sharing of this show with others is greatly appreciated. Don't forget to subscribe to the Inspiring Business Podcast on whatever platform you prefer. You can catch prior episodes on videosocials.net and on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and all the major platforms.